Nice to see you again, viewers. Today I will show you the first version of my user interface for my game and how it came to be. Spoiler, I may have used a bit too much of Stable Diffusion AI when it comes to all the artwork and images. I will also talk about this awesome tech and some of its hurdles when it comes to making assets for a game. To make this user interface, I've used a tool called Figma to get the flow and feel of the UI just the way I like it. You should never mindlessly jump into coding your UI without a solid design to back it up. I will in this video try to share my own experience of making a UI from scratch. If you find what I'm doing here is interesting and intriguing, you should check out my previous videos and subscribe to my channel right now! Making a UI has been surprisingly hard. There's a lot of details to get right in order to not annoy the player, while at the same time make it look good. Another important aspect is that it has to be intuitive. A player should be able to quickly understand how to do something. My process started with quickly drawing some concepts just to get some ideas on paper. The important thing here is not to get the design flawless, but to brainstorm a bit. I then moved on to this amazing tool called Figma, which really is meant to be used for websites and apps, but worked perfectly for my thought process. Here you can easily create a layout and test your design. This probably helped me shave off days in development time. I had friends try it out, with me listening on the side as they described what they saw and thought while they were clicking around. It took me many iterations before I landed in a concept I could finally accept. There are always pros and cons in a design, and the final version is often a compromise. Many of the designs I tried were hard for the players to understand how to use. I needed players to very quickly grasp some core concepts, such as how to create new life code behavior for a specific species, or how to use the community created behaviors, edit behaviors, having multiple behaviors, testing species, diets, campaign mode, biome definitions, and the list goes on. I hope what I got is good enough for the prototype, so let's go over what I have so far. And of course we start at the main menu. There's a simple settings window and 3 different modes: single player mode, multiplayer mode, and campaign/story mode. Single player mode is what I will do for the prototype, and multiplayer and campaign mode will have to wait. But let's check out my thoughts about campaign mode. You will have some kind of world and you can select different environments, different habitats, maybe desert area or water area or something. And then you would have a food web inspired progression tree. You will have to complete the bottom ones first in order to get to the boss of the area. Going into the single player mode, you will be first given the opportunity to configure the world you will be playing in. You can, for example, turn off disasters. You can paint different habitats or fine-tune them. And if you fine-tune them, they will be auto-categorized into these preset habitats. And you can also paint in a bunch of plants, for example grass or mushrooms or anything you like in certain areas. And then you simply press start. Here in the world view, you see your ecosystem die or thrive. You can control the time, you can see different metrics. If you, for example, click on a species, you see its metrics. You can use the different tools to spawn or kill different species. But the important part here are these 2 modes, the world view and the species mode. If we go into the species mode, we can see that we can edit the behavior of the species we selected in the world view, or we can select a species in this tab here. Right now we have the raccoon species selected, and we can see to the right that we can alter its properties such as speed, health, field of view, but also its diet. In the center we can see where the code resides. If we press this plus sign, we will add a new behavior to this raccoon species, indicated by this red circle, and we get some template code given the language you selected. A species can have more than one behavior. This would be visualized with more circles in this brain area. If we didn't want to write the code ourselves, we could use community written behaviors, and we can find these in the behavior library. Here we can see defend self is a behavior written by super programmer. It has gotten a fair review, and we could simply add it using this plus sign. Having added a few behaviors, this would look something like this. Now our species have 4 behaviors, and we have selected the one to the left, and we can see its code in the center panel. If we were to write this code in a very specific way, or we write the comments rather in a specific way, then some of its variables will be able to be altered without actually modifying code. And we can see this to the lower left here. We see these sliders and checkboxes. Structuring your code like this will be good for 2 reasons. One is that it will be easy to reuse your code, both for yourself and the community, and the other one is that for new players or new coders, they don't have to write all the code themselves and understand how to code everything themselves at the beginning, but rather they can reuse the community code and then slowly get into coding their own behaviors. The next step is to actually implement all this in code. But unfortunately, the framework I use, Bevy, does not actually have a mature UI tooling, so I ended up ditching this built-in support and went with a third-party lib called eGUI. eGUI is fantastic. It is, however, meant to be used for more practical-looking UIs. But I found that it was mature and intuitive enough for me to heavily customize it into my liking. If you who's watching this have made your own UI once, then I'd love to hear about it. So do leave your story in the comment section. So I haven't finished all the coding for the UI yet, but hopefully it will be enough for the prototype and you will see what I'm going for. So here it is, starting at the main menu of course. Almost all graphics I've used for the UI have been generated using some kind of AI. The background image was made using Dalle 2 by stitching together image patches. For every patch you specify some text, which the AI then uses to generate the image. So sometimes you write mossy tree or flying butterflies, and the AI will deliver, or at least sometimes. It's not perfect. Though this background image is nice, I might change it to something that's more alive. I'm thinking blurred gameplay in the background. These buttons were also generated using AI, but with a different AI called Stable Diffusion. To create these buttons, I started out with a background theme, but not too sure how much this helps. I then painted 2 really simple buttons with some greeny squiggly lines symbolizing plants and some brown symbolizing branches. I then upload an image to a locally running Stable Diffusion. I add a text description of what I want to generate, something like video game art with 2 main menu buttons. And I also add some keywords to set the style, like World of Warcraft, nature, and so on. I configure some settings and then I generate my image. I take the generated image and I paste it over my old one in an image editor, and then maybe erase some parts I don't like. Now I do the same procedure again, and every time I get a bit closer to what I really want. I've done this with every image asset, and if you save every step, they form these nice sequences. I could make an entire video about this, but this video is long enough, so let's show the rest of the UI. Going into single player, we're supposed to be able to configure the world we will play in, but haven't done that yet, as you can see, so let's just press start. Now we're in the world view. I haven't integrated the actual game with the UI code, so we're just looking at a static background. But we can try out the species tab by clicking this button. We can play around a bit by adding a few behaviors and copy pasting in some code. And look at that, we have syntax highlighting. I have to work on the background color though. And to the right we can edit skills or properties, for example max speed, health and so on. I still have some work to do here. And down here we have the diet. The diet is kind of special because each of these dots represent one kind of food, and you get to move these circles around to encapsulate some of these kinds of food. These dots are random, but in the real game there will be many more of these. Take this raccoon now, for example. This raccoon maybe eats some kind of meat and also some mushroom. Then we move them like this. I find this to be an intuitive way for a player to specify what kinds of food their species eat. What do you think? This is it for this episode. I hope you liked it. After I finish up integrating the UI with the game itself, I will be focusing on running JavaScript code in the browser as part of the game loop at runtime. So see you in the next devlog where we'll be up to more mischief. Stay wild, my friends.